Hello, everybody, and good evening. Welcome back to the stream. It is I, Digi Driver, welcoming you to Friday. That's right, Friday, April 14th, 2023. Been a while since I streamed. Not that long, but hasn't been a few days either. So, hello. Hopefully everybody's doing well. Let me just jump right into it. We've got some ground to cover tonight, so let me just take you on a brief tour of some of the things I've been up to lately. You know, or I've occasionally brought you up to date on the progress that I've been making on making custom backings for the taxi lines at KPYM. I started by the northwest ramp and just this taxi stuff, which is pretty simple and easy to duplicate, or not duplicate, I'm sorry, easy to create. And then we went to the main western ramp, and it's kind of difficult to make everything stick out when the editing boxes are in place. So we'll just hide stuff for now so I can take you on a quick tour. So while this is far from being perfect, this is the best that I could come up with for now using current technology. I will probably learn how to do things like ground mesh, projected mesh, I should say, in time, not right now. In the meantime, I have been working on my craft and figuring out how to use existing tools inside of the MSFS SDK to create taxi lines and to make text stick out. While it's certainly not perfect, it's a lot better than just having the white Plymouth text against the tarmac, which makes things not impossible to see, but it doesn't stick out as much as I'd like it to, or as much as anybody's expecting. So I have taken and drawn the backing textures for all the taxiways on the main, like, northeast southwest runway. And I've even added, although this is kind of old news, I've added helipad start positions for the hangars here and what will most likely eventually be my take on a Massachusetts State Police hangar for helicopters. And then again, more backing textures, what I call them. And I took it all the way down to the end of the runway and got to this point. And then I added more backing textures for these lines on the east ramp. And that's kind of where we are right now. I'm not fully done yet, but I have covered the northeast southwest runway with incursion and exit lines for taxi lines. I do need to put down a slightly darker material for these parking spots here. And I have done some of the work to get the larger lines implemented, like this straight line here, which I literally did before checking out last night, and this line, which goes all the way down the north-south runway, which isn't main traffic. I've also added hold short backings, and at this point, all I need to do is to start building the rest of the textures, rest of the aprons, I should say. I keep using the word textures. And then we will have the taxi line work done. The darker texture I might use, even though that's a pretty dark piece for the runway here. And yes, your eyes aren't imagining things. There is a difference in apron texture between the end of this runway and the middle part right here. That's because I tried to make these runways resemble what they appeared like IRL. With Whiskey 94, my scenery available on Sim Market, I just decided, hey, I'm just going to make one consistent texture or one consistent apron for everything that's there, and I used the dark apron texture so that I could just get away with using straight lines, or not straight lines, the regular taxi lines. Here, there are pieces that aren't the same, and I legitimately created this as a transparent runway so that I could easily put apron textures down. So let me get underway. As always, feel free to say hi or just lurk. I'm going to be in for a little bit, and then I'm gonna probably duck out around 10:30 or so. I might be on later tonight, and if I am, that'll probably be a quiet stream. I will most likely not be on this weekend because I'm switching over now to, I think, streaming during the week. But you never know. I might still stream on a Sunday afternoon. We'll see. Right now, I'm going to grab one of the apron textures. Oh, I can't do that until I re-enable that, right? That's right. I grab one of the apron textures and we're going to get started catching up. There we go. I don't know why, but when you get started, the apron lines, they kind of don't wind up where they normally should be. But I'm going to build lines from scratch, so I'm not concerned about where those lines are. I kind of had a funny moment yesterday while I was wrapping up a major section of backing textures for the taxi lines. I took a look at where I started to actually put those dark textures down on the west ramp, and I noticed that my technique changed so that when I put these lines down, there's a certain, I don't know, layout that I'm going for, which I've worked out in my head. If you've ever had the experience where you have been working on something for so long that when you go back to an earlier version of anything you were working on, whether it's a painting or you putting tables together or you fixing holes in your wall with like spackle and primer, when you start seeing the earlier versions of what you did or what you started doing before, you're like, oh wow, I this is what I did before. I guess I was just trying to make do with the knowledge that I knew. And I run into I don't I guess I don't stop enough to take a look at the progress that I've made in work. And I keep pushing because I just want to get things done as quickly and as best a quality as I can. But when you see the progress that you make in life, sometimes like, you step back and you go, oh, whoa, like I'm not where I was before. But anyway, folks, I hope you're having a very good evening. I hope this audio is coming through okay. Let me double check. I am getting audio feedback, so if you're watching on the replay, hopefully this audio is coming through nice and clear for you. And again, this isn't something I normally do. If you're going to be taxiing out into a darker apron, I wouldn't normally create the backing textures, but I decided to do that for fun. And because I'm curious, I want to see what this looks like. But I do hope everybody's doing well. I hope you had a great week. I had a couple of very busy weeks, a couple of really busy weeks at work, and this week was fast-paced, but it was okay. Last week was more challenging, and I'm happy to be in a place where I can, chew the fat a bit more than I was before, and I can think a little clearer. But yes, to lend weight to some of the discussion that I had on my Discord, yes, I am pivoting to creating almost exclusively scenery dev related content on Twitch. I I think I got to a point with flying where I like flying offline or flying with other people. I don't feel like I'm well, you might say, "Oh, Digi, don't put yourself down." I'm not putting myself down. I am strategically pivoting towards a more focused approach. Oh, and let me just double check something. I'm not looking at my current screen. I might be missing comments and chat, so I apologize if I have been. Let me keep my other screen open. I was looking at it in a different screen, but that one I would say has the unfortunate potential of missing conversations or just plain not working sometimes. So now I'm on a different screen. But yeah, I was thinking about this for a while, and I think I got to a point last year where I was like, well, I don't quite know what I want to do with streaming, and like I know I'm not going to be as successful as, insert person that gets like 200, 300 views per stream here. And while it wasn't the intent, I think many of us that do flight sim streams, although I can only speak for myself, would probably admit behind closed doors that we, in one way or another, would like to do this for a living. And seeing other people, doing it well, it makes you think like, is this what I want to do, or is this what I'm doing to hopefully have somebody latch on? Eric Flight, my friend, welcome aboard. Good to see you. Folks, my friend Eric Flight is also a flight sim streamer who streams both on Twitch as well as restreaming on YouTube, and is a IRL pilot. So, by all means, if you have not done so, please give my friend Eric Flight a follow. Now, unfortunately, I appear to have borked up my taxi line here because I hit Control S by accident, but it's okay. And the reason why it's okay is because I can try to figure out how to fix my problem one step at a time. I am going to resume editing and we'll see where we are. Yeah, this is the problem. When you resume editing after actually saving something, it gets difficult for you to pick up exactly where you left off. But I think I know what to do now. Okay, so it's either going to go one way or the other, and I think you hit resume editing here, and here is where you can actually pick up. Hopefully this works. We will see. Okay, yeah, I think that's it. You kind of have to go in the opposite direction when you are editing and you accidentally close your edits for something. I can't guarantee it's going to work all the time because I usually do my best to avoid having that happen. And you really don't want to hit the undo button when you resume editing because apparently it undoes edits. Oh no, it doesn't undo edits the wrong way. It's just that it adds things differently than you were expecting, than I was expecting. But that's neither here nor there. Welcome aboard, my friend. If you didn't already catch me talk about this at the top, I am zeroing in. What did I undo? Hey, Control Z, what did I undo? I don't think I did anything. I am zeroing in on the end of, I guess you could say, main or basic airport edits. I talked about this a little bit at the end of March, where I wanted to map out my plans to finish Plymouth Municipal. And I'm going to do my absolute best to finish in April. However, there is a good chance that it's going to be delayed. Hopefully not by much, but I would rather take the philosophy of software development teams that say it's done when it's done, and we can iron out the kinks and we can present a really nice product to the community. as opposed to saying, no matter what, it's going to be the end of April. And then, life happens and there's a bunch of issues that pop up. And then I'm like up till 3 or 4 in the morning working on edits, which come out bad anyway, because then I'll just be tired and even more sleep deprived. And then you'll get to a point where it's like, oh, what day is it? And then, and then you upload stuff, and then your runway markings are like upside down and backwards because you were putting them on when you literally had 2 hours of sleep. So you get where I'm coming from. But I have reason to believe that the momentum is due for a pickup. And the reason why I feel that way is because I'm coming down to the end of some of the basic things. Remember how I did some updates at like the end of February where I was like burning out of like Blender work and then not to want to work on it after being burnt out? Well, I mean, how many scenery dev companies probably have folks that are doing this stuff because they have to, because they're only being paid to do it? I, believe me, do not get me wrong about this. I have incredible respect for organizations like um, Fly Tampa and FT Sim and especially Parig and folks that are doing this because they have a passion for it and they want to bring it to market. But you know, I'm also willing to believe that over the course of creating an airport, there are some people that just do it because they got hired by the company. They're good at putting things together and they make money, but they might not be, it might not be like their first thing or the only thing that they get passionate about. Yeah, yeah, you're right. You're right. If you have a bigger team and you have folks that can specialize, that can just focus exclusively on creating custom assets in Blender, or that can create all your PBR textures for you, then yeah, I would imagine it's probably going to be easier for you to commit to either a schedule or to be able to nail down quality because you have folks that are going to be able to, for lack of a better phrase, focus on their work, focus on the very specific thing they're working on. But at the same time, you know, if you're doing that, or if you're in the unfortunate situation where you're working any job because you have to, or because you're good at it, but you might not be pursuing it with all your heart, then I would imagine that you struggle with occasional bouts of I don't want to be here doing this itis. And I think it's um you know it's possible for anybody in any industry, folks that came into a specific industry wanting to do something and having the commitment and passion to do it, but then 10 years of life happens and you can't look at something the same way you used to, and you're like, I kind of don't have passion for this. And oh, that's right. Oh, that's right. Any builds released JFK or is about to if they haven't already. And people are flying to JFK. I thought there was like a JFK event. There was either a JFK event last weekend or like this week. And now there's an FNO in California or out west. But yeah, I mean, any builds is just putting out the sceneries and I'm happy about that. It gives me a chance to observe stuff. I've had the privilege of winning, the blessing of winning a couple of AnyBuilds airports, LAX and London Heathrow. And I think I'm overdue for, a flight to go check out those airports. But like I said, that'll probably be off stream. Oh yeah, JFK getting slammed? Yeah, no surprise. No surprise. JFK is the flavor of the day for East Coast airports. So you're going to have people flying to it and from it, and they're going to be enjoying themselves, and that's fine. That's fine. I think once everything cools down and you have folks that are focusing on flying back to where they want to go, it'll probably be like, oh, okay, like where do we want to go? JFK? Oh yeah, we flew there like about 5 or 6 times. That's okay. We'll go somewhere else. and then they will go somewhere else, and then eventually it'll be back to kind of like normal flow where folks fly to JFK if they're going to be flying, from overseas, or if they fly to JFK if they're going to be flying across the country to, I don't know, uh, Calgary in Edmonton in Canada, or if they're going to be going to Dallas, or if they're going to be going to Atlanta or someplace like that. Oh, nice, nice. Hope you enjoy it if you got it. I have a, more specialized focus, clearly, but at the same time, I remember what I was going to say. Um, there are certain things that we as people grow up doing, which we turn around one day and we don't want to do anymore. I am fortunate. I'm very fortunate still, even in the midst of not understanding everything involved with this hobby. I'm very fortunate that I am developing a greater and greater passion, or at least a greater and greater affinity for scenery development. It's something which I did not expect to enjoy this much, both on stream and off stream. I might have a monopoly on KPYM. Well, there we go. And I'm going to be honest with you, Eric Flight. I started this because I wanted to create a better version of Roanoke for a friend of mine who passed away last year. But I mean, there's no doubt in my mind, I have the desire to get back to Roanoke and to build an airport. There is an airport that has been released for MSFS, uh, but I don't care. I'm going to make my version anyway and release it on Sim Market if I get the chance to. Also, I think I talked about this in my channel, but I don't know if you know, I'm beginning to learn. Actually, no, you do know because I told you. I'm beginning to learn more and more about creating PBR textures. And while I'm not using Substance Painter yet, I will eventually start using either Substance Painter or some combination of that and or GIMP so that I can use, create materials and then create my own textures so that when people ask, when I go through like my legal checks before I post something, I can say, oh no, no, I created the PBR textures myself. These are my custom textures. They're all handmade. Yes. So it's one of the busier airports to fly to for GA in Massachusetts. I did not know that. I did not know that. That's kind of cool. This is both one of the reasons why I like creating backing textures for taxiways, the taxi lines, excuse me, and also one of the reasons why I don't. I will probably be putting more effort into learning how to do things like projected mesh to create taxiways, which I can just kind of slide into place for an airport. I would imagine it's probably going to be difficult at first, but the learning curve, I'm hoping, will be a lot lower or less difficult than using built-in tools. Well, yeah, yeah. I mean, once I create a texture once for like a building or a sign or whatever, those PBR textures will always be what they are. And then I'll be able to reuse the textures and I'll be able to reuse the objects for future sceneries if the objects themselves are not that complex. Like, I'm not going to reuse the Alpha Flight 1, school texture in Sedona if I build that airport, but I might use, like a bench object or a wood grain texture that I created at another airport for use in the future. And then I'll be at the point where I start reusing assets to create different materials or different objects elsewhere. Took you a lot longer to paint liveries and textures for the Boston buildings. Okay, I hear that. So yeah, and good gravy. I'm actually talking during a scenery dev stream. Wow. Okay. I'm not going to freak out too much about the backing textures because it's almost they're almost negligible against this black background. So I'm going to clean this up. Oh, okay. Yeah, back in the day. Man, like I remember doing flights in Microsoft Flight Simulator 98 and flying to places like Boston and I think like Miami and Orlando and being like, wow, like I see textures that don't shimmer on the ground because I had a 3D accelerator card. And it's like, wow, I can actually see better buildings in like New York City and stuff like that. FS 98. I might go silent tonight. I'm most likely going to be doing some evening dev, but I might go silent tonight. If I don't, then the next time that I will stream will probably be Friday. And I almost feel like I should apologize because literally I mean I kid you not, Mrs. Digi can tell you when I got to the end of last Friday and I stopped, it was late and I physically felt like my brain was smoking. I don't know if you've ever gotten to that point where you've either been extremely like upset or frustrated, or you just got to a point where you literally were having trouble um, thinking about something because you had just put your brain through the metaphysical rigor. And that's kind of what happened with me with a work week. I'm not saying it for sympathy. I don't care if anybody subs or not, whatever. I'm just saying I I didn't understand what that felt like until I experienced it. Yep. And therein lies the problem, my friend. I don't do that. I am like probably the mass of people out there that look at projects or look at tasks and say, I'll be done when I'm done. And I don't I don't necessarily hyper focus. I just develop this kind of like I'm gonna get it done. I'm gonna get it done. And then 1 hour turns into two, two turn into six. And then I have committed a great deal of time working on solving a problem which might not even have needed, there we go, might not even have required as much focus or attention as I gave it. Nice. Okay, so you're gonna get back to Star Trek, and you have actually been focusing on other stuff. Well, that's good. That's good. And I think I might have told you about my cross the pond story, but just in case I didn't, or for the benefit of anybody else watching for the first time in a while, I'll clue you guys in. I don't know if I have actually even streamed talking at all the last time I streamed, so I'll let you know. I I took a break for a few days from streaming scenery dev because I just want to like to kick back and chill a little bit. And it was when was it? On vacation this week. Good, good. I decided I wanted to fly across the Atlantic Ocean on April 1st, but by the time I made my decision, it was way too late for me to register or to learn about things like oceanic procedures for across the pond. So I just said, you know what? I'm going to fire up MSFS, grab a long haul aircraft, and go fly across the Atlantic Ocean on MSFS multiplayer. So I did. I grabbed the salty simulations 747 800, and I set up in Western France, and I decided to go westbound from France to Philadelphia. So I did a quick test, I think the night before, just to see what was possible in terms of getting the aircraft set up. I got comfortable with it. I started, and then I just like I debated whether or not I wanted to do it. I woke up that morning and I decided to try it out. Hey, Pavlin, welcome aboard, friend. Good to see you. Welcome back. Pavlin is one of the friends of the channel. Pavlin also has YouTube content as well and has been trying to get the occasional P3D flight in. Some pending issues, of course, in terms of technology, but welcome back, Pavlin. Good to see you. We are just talking about um, my recent long haul experience in MSFS. I decided to try flying a 747-800 from France to the east coast of the US, not the east coast, but basically eastern US. And I flew from, I forget what the name of the ICAO code, I think it was LFRB to KPHL. So I flew from Britannia or Brest, Britannia to Philadelphia. And I think I flew for about 9 hours or so. You have a question. Let's hear the question. I know that I took about 9 hours because I thought I was going to take less, but then I accidentally paused the sim while I ran some errands. So unfortunately, I goofed that part, but that's okay. Oh, I gotta name this. East Apron Taxi Loop 5. Yeah, Taxi Loop 5. I'm just going to keep going, and we'll keep going until about maybe 10:15, and then we'll call it early, and then I will come back here a little bit later. Yes, are you talking about the ortho images that you posted in Discord? The scenery for Kuala Lumpur? I did. How much effort did it take for you to actually get those things converted into P3D? Because I used to build ortho for X-Plane, but I never tried doing it for P3D. It took a week. Okay. Okay. Was it because of the download speed or because of the amount of work that had to be done? Have to admit, I'm kind of curious about that. Actually, I'm curious about that. Regardless, you created ortho scenery for, like Kuala Lumpur, so hats off to you. It's not something that I would consider doing. You might almost say me flying MSFS as long as I have has made me soft for creating ortho, but at the same time, I've been flying I've been flying MSFS predominantly, so I haven't had a real desire to create ortho scenery. Oh, wow. The AutoGen files were 5,000 HN files. Okay, so you just hit on something which I had forgotten about. When I used to fly in FSX, I temporarily at least not bought, downloaded free ortho tiles from a developer called Blue Sky or Blue Mountain Scenery. They created ortho for a few states, including, I think, Arizona, California, Nevada, and some places out west. Now, the problem, of course, with, between quotes, traditional ortho in FSX and probably earlier versions of P3D is that if you put down um, if you put down ortho, you lose all of the procedurally generated autogen because I think it depends on having land class scenery to tell it what to put down. Okay, so you're going to try to add trees and buildings, so you're doing it by hand. So, okay, that brings me to a point. I think that's one of the reasons why, even though I liked seeing ortho in FSX, it also was something that put me off the idea, because when I put down ortho normally, it removed my autogen. Now, yes, you can try to add it back by hand by simply placing objects in the sim, either by using the built-in SDK, which FSX actually did have an SDK, you just had to install it, or you could do it through, like, I don't know, Airport Design Editor and do that, but then you'd basically be creating humongous files, custom placing ortho. And to be honest, I don't even remember if ADE actually let you put an overlay of ortho down so you'd know where to put buildings down to begin with. Yeah, no objects, only photo imagery. Okay, so yes, you can put AutoGen down. Well, not, excuse me, I rephrase. You can put objects back in, but you will lose your AutoGen. So it was always a pretty sharp sword. I was like, do I want ortho badly enough to get rid of any objects that are on the ground and make me have to put them down by hand? Or can I just be happy with the, I don't know, land class scenery from Orbex for North America, and then just have the general idea of the places I'm flying to? Yes, yes, you're right, Eric. I actually even used it once upon a time because I tried to create an airport, and it is possible to put the buildings down. And I think that was, I guess you could say, a precursor to me learning more about placing scenery in the sim again. But I think it was like a short-lived time because I was just like, I don't want to spend too much time thinking about this. I want to fly, or I want to, be a successful flight sim streamer. And then I got caught up in the caught up in the game. I got caught up in the desire to, stream flights for FSX, and it stopped being a priority for me. For some people, it's still a priority. There are probably s- there's probably the rare individual out there who is so gifted, so smart, that they use FS 2004 because every single one of their add-ons is in that sim, and they create their own scenery. They create their own, they update their reports by themselves. They're happy as a clam in their corner of the world, and don't care at all what anybody says about any sim because they've custom crafted an experience for themselves. Although I'd probably imagine the number of folks flying FS 2004 these days is low. I reinstalled FSX on my computer just for nostalgia flights, but I'm not going to be installing, add-ons and stuff back into it because again, between X-Plane and MSFS, that's basically almost my entire flight plan. Yes, I would agree. I think it was harder because the infrastructure wasn't in place yet. While you could drop objects into the sim, you could hot drop items in. The user interface was not as polished as it is now. And yes, I said that this interface is polished. I mean it. Oh, okay. Okay. Well, there we go. There we go. Um, that's something that I didn't think about doing, which you might be able to do. You never know how many people are looking to continue using P3D because they're satisfied with the flight model. And I mean, what, P3D version like 5.3 is only like a year or two old, and MSFS is only a year or two old, and people are just grinding out the scenery for it. So P3D may still have a market even now. It's just that the majority of people have moved on to using MSFS and X-Plane because, it quote unquote looks better. I can tell you that I think the last time I did a P3D flight was either last month or about a month and a half ago. However, I was flying, I think, the TFDI 717. I enjoyed it, and I took off, I flew, and I landed. I took off and landed at default airports, but I enjoyed the experience. Believe it or not, I believe there is actually working ortho streaming for X-Plane. There's something called Auto Ortho, which was for X-Plane 11, and I believe people are using that for X-Plane 12. So in a sense, what you're doing with Google Maps imagery, people are doing for X-Plane 12, where they basically have ortho streamed where they're flying. And it seemed like something which was foreign to me before. Like, what? I can just cook my own ortho. But like I said, being with MSFS for a few years now and having the ability to be able to stream ortho well enough, it's something like, you know what? Maybe I can do that. However, there is one problem. Apparently, there's some kind of either use issue or IP issue because apparently folks are having difficulty using auto ortho, and I don't know why. Making ortho and storing it was a pain. Not going to argue with you there. I, in my heyday, which was like between, I would say, early 2020 to early 2022, I got to a place where I was working from home, working in my office, and I would literally, while my wife was doing other work, I would have the home PC running, building ortho for X-Plane. Zoom level like maybe 15 or 16 at most. And so I would get like maybe 20, 25, upwards of 30 tiles built every day. And then I would test them that night and fly them. I can respect that. I can respect that. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. I was a FSX fanboy, mostly because I liked what I got out of FSX. I was enjoying, buying sceneries for it from Orbex, buying land class scenery. I mean, flying into Jackson Hole and having the custom land class scenery on top of North American tiles was something that I enjoyed. But eventually I ran into a problem. FSX was simply outclassed by P3D, even as far back as version 4.0, because that's when they went purely 64-bit, and they were like, well, this is how we do it now. And then that made a lot of people go, oh, wait, well, let's go this way. And FSX stopped getting airport updates, and people were updating airports because they wanted to, not because the airports are being updated by Microsoft. And you have to understand, Microsoft dropped the ball on FSX, what, a good 3 to 4 years by the point where I was starting to really get into it. Actually, probably 5. Because by the time I started hunting for AFCAT files, there were no airport updates to speak of, and they were about a year, they were about 2 years out from retaking the entertainment license from Dovetail Games, and Dovetail Games released FSX on the Steam platform so that they had updates which made it an even better experience than the gold boxed set of FSX. And I'm going somewhere with this conversation. Yeah. Eventually, what happened was even FSX on the Steam Edition platform started running out of steam because the AppCat updates weren't coming anymore. And I ran into a problem. I had so many separate scenery updates for AFCADs for airports. I literally broke my sim. One day I turned it on, it would not start, no matter what I did. I wound up trying to um, verify the installation, which basically meant we're going to reinstall everything. And then I had to, reinstall a whole bunch of stuff, relicense my aircraft. And I think I got back to a point where I was able to fly, but it was unreliable. And when I say unreliable, I meant like the next like five or six airport AFCAT file installs later, it broke again. And then it just broke for good. And I think I was able to reinstall it once, but by that point I was starting to get into flying X-plane. And by that point, I had my first dedicated desktop PC for gaming, for flight simming, which Mrs. Digi and I, graciously came together and we said, hey, you know what? Let's do this. Let's have fun with this. I'm streaming. Let's go. So by that point, I had already started to meddle with X-Plane. And since I didn't have a license for P3D, I said, hey, let's get into this because X-Plane's going to give me airport updates and I'll be able to fly at least what I thought was better handling aircraft, which in a sense you might debate that, but it's subjective. P3D has probably very well updated lookup tables, whereas X-Plane has, leading edge, like, wind calculations, which actually take aerodynamics into effect so that, their stuff's calculated on the fly, but whatever. Blah, blah, blah. All the versions on display in your office. Nice. But, but all that to say, I had a great time with FSX for as long as I had it. I took it as far as I possibly could. And then I got to a point where it just didn't want to work anymore. I jumped into X-Plane, and then I had X-Plane for a good long time. I I think I streamed it exclusively from probably about the fall of 2019 through to when MSFS came out. And then I started streaming it some of the time. And then right around, I think, Sim Update 5, something happened with my MSFS install and something kind of broke. So I jumped back into X-Plane for a while. But then around Sim Update 7 or 8, those bugs were fixed. I jumped back into MSFS and then I kind of stepped on the gas and I I did do occasional flights in X-Plane, more than probably I remember, but I kind of got back into MSFS. Oh, yeah. Um, I mean, I'm not trying to convince you to get back into X-Plane 11 or fly something you don't want to fly, but something I remember was that somebody I know, Iron Condor Simulations on Twitch, he might have either bought the rep pack or talked to other flight simmers that actually bought the rep pack for the default 172 so that it either handled better or it was just a more realistic experience. I wonder if that would change the way that the flight model works for that. I mean, if it doesn't, it doesn't. I'm not worried about it. Like I said, these days I try to be as um, sim ambivalent as I can, but I'm not gonna lie. MSFS isn't getting the bulk of my attention, clearly because I'm trying to finish KPYM and hopefully make a career out of it. There we go. Okay, so WB Sim, are you talking about an update to the 172 in MSFS, or is it a different name for the rep pack for the 172 in X-Plane? I'm assuming you're talking about MSFS. That's what I believe you're talking about. Well, thank you, sir. Thank you. And for however long, this roller coaster ride is going to continue, I really do feel like I want to commit to it. Um, if you would have really sat down with me and talked with me about the cost of building scenery for MSFS and the time commitment, I might have been talked out of it like last summer or something like that. But the beauty of where I am right now is that I'm really starting to find a groove for scenery dev, and I'm not gonna lie, I like doing this maybe even just a little bit more than flying fake planes. And there's a reason why. It's it's almost like I'm telling a story by building custom scenery. So some people are very good entertainers and they know how to capture people's attention on stream. And some people have incredible stories and they have charisma like oozing out by the pound. Um, I'm not even gonna lie. I find myself very much enjoying watching folks like Flying Fabio and Dr. 737 and 757 Spy, and those folks. They bring the charisma, they bring the brand, they bring the expectations of what they're capable of doing, and they produce a great experience. I'm sure those folks have their down days too, and they have difficulty registering or deciding what to do sometimes. But all this to say, I like watching people fly. I don't like streaming flight simulation anymore. Um, I don't. It's not that I don't feel qualified. I know how to fly fake planes. It's just that this this speaks to me so much more now. A custom texture for the painted line. Folks, please welcome my online friend Wambi, who does also do scenery dev, although I think there was a slight break in the action that you took, or a bigger break you took from the action. Thank you for stopping in tonight. And yes, much to your point, I may be pursuing with a passion learning about projected mesh. However, I am finding that I am actually getting some really decent results using additional layers of ground aprons to produce the backing effects that we have for taxiways like this. And Eric Flight, I'm assuming that the taxiways at your airport have backing lines because they have to be visible, or there's some kind of FAA regulation that says taxiway lines have to be painted or have to be installed in such a way that you can see it in all kinds of weather or in all situations. I'm assuming. I could be wrong. Yes. God bless you. Um, it took me it took me a while. Let me think. When was the first time I started posting pictures of the backing lines? I think it was in the beginning of March, or like late February. It's not something that you should do expecting it to be easy. You can't just blow up any kind of polygon and just drape it. It's going to take time. It's going to take effort, and it's going to take commitment. And dare I say, oodles of patience. It's not impossible to do. It's just something that you have to commit to. I might use this method again but I might do it only in certain sections or for certain reasons. I'll probably keep doing it in the next airport or two that I make because it's going to take me a little while to get the learnings down for projected mesh. But probably once I learn projected mesh, and probably once I start learning how to overlay um, Blender projects with satellite imagery, it will make creating custom objects maybe just a touch easier. But I also use, for lack of a better phrase, what I call unconventional methods. So I find ways to get around some of the difficulty. It's all right. Actually, don't feel bad at all. I had heard about that before. Um, what they used to call ground polys in, I think, as far back as like FSX or P3D, or even for X-Plane. MSFS calls projected mesh. So I kind of got scared off the idea because, you know, I think MSFS was just pushing out a lot of system updates, or they were putting out a lot of world updates. And I was afraid that learning projected mesh would put me in a dead end where I would have to constantly be tweaking my textures to keep them up to date. But it's not like, working on data for the next version of the fly-by-wire A320 Neo. This is stuff that would be installed in my scenery and stay there. So it's probably going to come. I'm probably going to learn about that so that I can do it. And there's another reason why. And this is even more important reason for me. I'm doing this for I'm doing this for my family. And it's not because, oh, like, what am I going to do? No, I'm doing it because this represents hopefully the start of something bigger. Like, I don't know if you guys can relate, but I think there we go. Painted line textures only change the look of the painted line itself. There we go. So one more reason to learn about them. But digressing from my digression, if you've ever had something you've wanted to do, but you kind of talked yourself down from doing it because you're like, I don't know, like blah 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 blah, like I don't know if it's going to be like well received. Take it from me. I did not expect last fall to actually release anything on any site, anywhere, and charge people money for my airport. And believe it or not, the vetting process for Sim Market took longer than I wanted it to. And I was even starting to get bummed out by that. And then one night, and Mrs. Digi and I are just like grabbing a quick meal somewhere, and I look at my phone, and I go on Sim Market, and I'm like, oh, I wonder what's going on. And you know how, like we all do, you look just to see if the thing you want is there, or you look to see if somebody responded to a post you made. And all of a sudden I look, and I see W94 on sale on Sim Market. And I'm like, I told my wife, I'm like, um, I have an airport for sale. And like I was just like slack-jawed, like, oh my word, people can actually buy the airport. And I literally sold like 10 copies of it over time. So I can say I am a scenery developer. I can say I'm a professional scenery developer. And I can say I own a scenery development company. And as 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 childish and as somewhat like superfluous as it sounds, that was something that I wanted to do in one form or another for a long time. Panagon, my friend, it is good to see you. Welcome back. Good to see you. There's actually one dark backing included in the sim files, just isn't used anywhere. Huh. You are a proud owner of Whiskey 94. And Panagon, believe it or not, the methods that I learned in sceneries like this, I want to apply to W94. So don't think you just bought an airport it's going to be ignored. I want to go back to it. I want to improve it. I just want to get myself set up to have a better schedule. Well, not a better schedule, just grow some backbone, Like take the challenge of life and be like, okay, this is what I have to do. Like this is how it works. We go and we do this. Blah blah blah. Kind of like when someone bought merch. Hey, Eric Flight, I tell you a story. You were streaming that day, and I think I noticed it before you said anything about it. Your tagline or your banner up top or whatever it was that popped in or popped out, it said that you had merch available. So I'm like, dude, he was talking about putting merch out there and his merch is available. So literally, I ducked out, went straight to the site. I had some disposable cash, and I was like, okay, I'm buying this and I'm buying this. And then I was trying to be sneaky, like, hey, how's your site doing? Because I was like, I was trying to get you to go on your site to see that somebody actually bought something. And and then eventually like you caught on. It was like you were like an hour and a half or like 2 hours into your stream, and you were like, hey, someone actually bought something. And I just kept quiet because I was like, well, there we go. And then the adventure begins. And then I think you were saying something about, hey, like let me know what you want to see in terms of like future merch. And I think that's when like I spoke to you and I was like, I told you offline on DMs. I was like, hey, by the way, I was the one to place that order. And then the snowball began and we were having fun with that. But I didn't tell you before you did that stream and you flew and you were like, yeah, I'm flying near the place where this person first placed an order. And I was just like, I'm eating this up because it's like, oh, okay. Yep, 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 yep. Um, but yeah, yeah, I've got some plans. I've got some plans. And who knows if I don't make a scenery for that airport too. Hmm. Intrigue after intrigue. But it's fun. It's fun. And let's not kid ourselves. When somebody buys something that we made, when somebody buys something that we offer as a service, you get a kick out of that. Unless you absolutely do not like the idea of selling your own stuff and you're doing it out of reluctance, when somebody buys your stuff and they say thank you, it's like somebody, on top of the fact that somebody's handing you money, whether it's in card form or in cash, it makes you feel good. It does make you feel good. Like, admit it. I will admit it. Having sold 10 airport sceneries means I actually was able to sell airport sceneries. And I'm happy about that. Yes. 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 I agree. I agree. Which is why I want to show my support for people that have actually bought my sceneries in the past. Now, um, let's play a humongous game of let's pretend. Let's pretend it's 3 years down the road. I have released, I want to say, I don't know, two, three more airports. And now I have like five or six or however many airports I have. There is there's probably going to be a point where I cross over or I sit down with myself and I have to make some very clear-cut decisions. I'm either going to have to choose a place at which I say, hey, I'm either going to be content with the pace at which I release airports, taking my time and not releasing more than, like, say, one airport every year. And then that pace might slow even more because I'm going to be busy maintaining those airports, to say nothing of potentially building those airports for the simulators. And that might be where I am for the rest of my life. Or I might get to the point where I say, okay, I've been doing this for 5 years. I make X number of dollars. I could, in theory, start thinking about bringing people on, if for nothing else, to simply make sure that the airports that I release, the older airports that I've released, are maintained. And I can coordinate my efforts with them so that they do their job. And then we go from, you know, X number of dollars a year to X number of dollars a year plus the fruits of that effort. I got to be honest with you, I'm not sure that's a path I'm ever going to be comfortable employing, but that's a bridge that I think I can cross once I get to it. Whether or not I go from a team of one to a team of X is up to me. I just know it's not going to happen for a while, and I am okay with that. And I may choose never to go down that route, because then I can set my expectations. I can say this is always going to be a secondary income, but it's going to be a banger secondary income because I'm going to put effort into it, and I'm going to demonstrate care and concern for my customer base, and we're going to have a really great time doing it. Thank you, Wambi. Really appreciate the support. Yes, yes. And I think that will be an adventure too, Eric, because I think if I can get the right folks to come along, if I can get the right people that are extremely passionate about what's being done, then we can make some things. And this goes from being a hobby that happens to put in a nice chunk of change to a hobby that pulls in an even greater chunk of change to like what I do. And then that means that things like FS Expo and um, I don't know, various other potential events become things, and I might even start showing up at airports more. And yeah, not for nothing, but those private pilot licenses, they cost money, lots of money. So if if I want the goal, I have to decide what it is I'm going to choose to do and what it is I'm going to choose to not do. Thank you so much, my friend. Really appreciate that. I will say, I will say that um, my desire to work on scenery, like I said before, it's become easier and easier for me to um, do this instead of, you know, watching another season of like The Mandalorian, or instead of me hopping on MSFS and just doing multiplayer flights. Don't misunderstand me. I have nothing against hopping on VATSIM and doing multiplayer and hang out with friends on nights. I've developed a greater respect for the time it takes to get stuff done. So I'm learning slowly what to let go of and what to hold on to. And okay, okay, I see. Yeah, that, and to be honest, that sounds quite realistic, especially if um I would have to take time to do it, because it wouldn't be something that I would pursue all in one shot, because I'm not in the ideal environment where like it's the only thing I do and I have like an extremely good job and I'm like a doctor, or like I, you know, play for a major team. I I I make X number of thousands of dollars a year, so I can get by on my full-time job, believe that. But at the same time, you know, this hustle is kind of like the germ of me wanting to seriously consider going full-time with this. So it's a thought. Well, there we go. There we go. And those numbers, the ones you just put down, they pretty much seemed like what I was expecting. So, yes, yes, it does sound doable. It also sounds incredibly expensive, and it would be something that would come second or third or whatever place it would be to some other long-standing requirements and priorities which we have. But by the same token, it's nice to know that it's doable. Um, would I get realistic about other goals? Well, I don't know. I don't know. Um, it you never know. What's to say? What's to say I get to a point in 5 years where this is my full-time job and I am the face of a grassroots movement in scenery development across Sims, and I make enough money so that I can get a pilot's license and night certification and IFR and multi-engine and then get type rated in a business jet. Who's to say? Is it the single most important thing in my life? No. There are other people and other things that take considerably higher priority. But at the same time, right now, I'm extremely happy that I have reconnected with a hobby that I once did just for fun. And somewhere along the way, this thought snuck into my head that said, you want to know what? People want this. Build it. So let me save this and peel back. And let me take a moment to save. So let's see. Depending on where you live. Lol. Okay. We will step back for now and we will survey the damage. So, as I've said before, I am working on Plymouth Municipal Airport, Kilo Papa Yankee Mike. This is going to be something I intend to release eventually on Sim Market and or any platform that will take it. Probably not flightsim.to because they turned me down in the past. It will sell for, I believe Mrs. Digi came up with this number today, and I think it's good. It will sell for $10 US. It will have, if not every single building on the property be custom, virtually every single building be custom. I might keep a few types as default buildings, but it has custom taxi line work and it has custom texturing for runways. And when I say custom texturing, I mean I literally followed what the satellite imagery said to lay down for not materials, but I'm saying the way the runway looks. And I have used MSFS assets. They are usable per my understanding because I am not reselling said assets, but they are part of the sim, and I have used them to create W94 on Sim Market. And if MSFS ever has a problem and they want me to revise my stuff and create totally custom assets, I will, even if it means taking the site down, taking the airport down, and then redoing it. Oh yeah, by the way, I had some fun with Blender. This is a low poly object, clearly, but I had some fun with materials. This program that literally lets you create PBR textures yourself. And I have created my own custom Buzzin' Gate. Now, I can probably add more polygons, but I'm going to tell you guys something which is probably going to become the moniker or the way which I create airports. I am probably going to create more detailed external models, and I'm going to create very simple internal things or external things. These sofas, for example, in the Alpha 1 school will probably have textures on them, but I'm probably not going to add more than maybe 10 to 20% more polygons on those. There will be desks and such in here, and I already made doors. And I will figure out how to get these lights to illuminate these walls nicely. Um, future break room, by the way. But by the same token, I'm not going to go bananas with like 5,000 polygons for a cup of coffee because I want to save your VRAM. That's your instructor's office. Nice. And the hangers are going to be what they are. Hopefully, I'll improve even more in the future, but this is not a factual representation of what the hangers look like. This is just the best that I came up with on the fly. And the other thing that I have is custom hangers. I'll probably replace some of these models so that some of these doors are open and some are closed. But the lights now actually come on at night and turn off during the day. And I will demonstrate. I gotta make this smaller. Work with me, Sim. Come on. Okay, there we go. So it used to be that that light was on all the time. Now, when it gets dark out, light goes on. And when it gets light out, light goes off. All because some very wonderful folks online with YouTube channels educated me on how to find the property in Blender that adds the MSFS properties so that you don't have that light on all the time. Nice. Nice. Of course, believe it or not, my custom asset. Hey, listen, details, my man, details. I'm putting in details to these airports. Low poly, but very effective. And that's what I want to emphasize. I would rather put more low poly objects in such a way that your brain believes like everything is in place that needs to be in place, as opposed to not doing stuff. And I think I'm going to put some basic like divider lines for the road, or I might change this texture out because it looks maybe just a touch off. But again, we have default buildings for now, but we have buildings, we have parking spaces, the whole nine. And I might put down some more um, street lights here so that this place looks lit up at night. But yeah, I'm using default assets along with some custom stuff. And eventually, even these buildings will be custom assets with some help from my friends because these are default. But like I said, I've got almost all of the taxi line work done. And once that taxi line work is done, then I'll be able to put down the taxi signs, which go into like this cooked piece of earth here, so you can see where you're going. Oh, yes, I need to. Oh, it's actually pretty dark at night. Okay. And Alpha 1's already closed up. Oh, okay. Oh, you know what? You know what? This reminds me of something. Something another flight sim streamer mentioned a while ago, and something I paid attention to. Sometimes at certain airports, the center lines for taxiways, instead of like every 10 meters, it's like every 2 meters. So you have a whole bunch of taxi lights down the taxiway. I wanted to try to be more realistic. Um, Same thing with the border lights. I tried to make these not be so not proliferate the landscape with them. And again, when you get your copy to test, I'm sure you'll have constructive criticism for me. Um, or I might get a troll email that says your scenery sucks. Fix it. I would laugh if that happened because I knew I'd know you're kidding around. I'd know you are. So it is what it is. All these lines took me a while to do. I'm not gonna lie. Um, but I'm glad I put the taxi lines down first and then covered them up because laying taxi lines down to nestle into those backing textures would probably have been even more bad. Ooh. Oh my word. You just gave me an idea. Okay, I'm not going to give you guys too much information or bore you per se, but it is possible to make scenery very interactive. I proved that with W94 by allowing you to hide your yoke in compatible aircraft to open and close the main hangar. When you change the behavior of something in the sim and make it so that the user can control what happens to it, what happens is that goes from being a regular object to a sim object. So I don't know if anyone. Oh, short answer, it's not. The only thing that I could possibly think of as maybe a theory would be creating custom objects, which you'd use as custom objects, and then having a certain thing change their texture. But I don't know if you'd be able to change their lighting on the fly. I'm going to go with Womby's answer for now and just say no. Um, there might be somebody that created a library of things that are controlled by radio frequency, but I haven't heard anything like that. And the people that are probably going to create that are probably going to be your um there's my, oh, this is a silent stream warning. Wrong. As you can tell, I do lots of silent streaming. I think night lighting is hard coded. Night lighting is hard coded, but the lighting that's possible for objects in Blender is not. You would probably, I haven't shut up since the beginning. Oof. Well, yes, I have been talking a lot. You can say that. It's okay. What was I trying to say? When you interact with Blender objects, you can make them do things. So you can animate things in Blender by doing certain things in Sim. But lighting is not something that I've explored. I would probably have to come back to that. I'll put it to you this way. If I did that, that would probably make me a full-time senior developer because I think that would be something that would probably um, charge well for or charge respectably for. And then we could talk about, taking this as a hobby into a full-time profession. But it is what it is. Hmm. Right now, it's about quarter of 11 Eastern Time in the US. I think it's Eastern Daylight Time. And I am about 15 minutes over where I wanted to be. But that's okay. Had fun. It was great catching up with you folks. I like chatting, clearly. I am probably going to either pick this back up tonight quietly, or I might stop for tonight and come up with a way of either doing more of this on Sunday or throughout the week. Something tells me I'll probably crank on this for like another hour tonight, later at some point. But if I don't be surprised. I will try to get back to a more consistent schedule. Um, I liked doing nighttime streams with no audio or no mic because it was just a way for you guys to be able to take a peek into what I was doing. Whether or not you said hi, it's okay. Um, I was just like putting it out there for people to see. I might do a stream during the week where I am chatting. Like I said, almost like a not a planning meeting, but a check-in. like a town hall, to give you guys an idea of some of the things I'm working on or planning, and but mostly quiet streams, and then see where we are. Again, I am going to push a little bit more to try to get this done by the end of this month, but there is a very good chance it will not happen. And I'm not ashamed to say that because I want to make sure that the airport is at the quality where people would like it to be, or better said, I want the airport to be at a quality where I'm comfortable it being. That's a good point. That's a good point. Scripting, the scripting language, I forget exactly what it is, but it's very similar to languages that I've worked with as a software developer, which is why it was relatively relatively straightforward for me to actually create the interactivity required to let that hangar be opened. But it does require changing the class of object you make and export to the sim and the way in which it works. So we wouldn't be keying up, or we wouldn't be actually talking on the mic per se. Oh no, wait. Eric Flight was saying exactly that. It's not just tuning a frequency, it's actually doing stuff while you're on the frequency. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So that would be something that would be very interesting, but I know it's not something that I have the brain power for right now. I think, like Wambi said, more than a few other things have to be answered in order for that to actually become a very real possibility. To be continued for sure, but right now is not something that I'm actually, you know, capable of doing. Would I like to at some point? Sure. Make the experience more realistic for somebody? Why not? But we're getting pretty far. Um, yeah. And eventually, coming soon, a custom terminal with rooms and such. Not too many, but basically some kind of blend and additional 3D buildings. I keep saying it and I keep meaning it. Eventually, I do want to actually create this and probably resolve this altitude data because apparently it's off. It's okay. We'll I will address that very shortly. Um, yeah, folks, I'm gonna go ahead and call this stream done for tonight. I will probably come back and do silent if I do. And I'm not sure if this taxiway should be as well drawn up as it is, but I kind of like this right now. I'm going to pretend they painted that on. That's why I'm going to call this airport a representation of KPYM. Unless the resident experts tell me, okay, put the lines this way, make this line blurry, make this line really dirty, etc. And we'll go on from there. Okay. Actually, Eric Flight, to be honest, what the moment you said pilot controlled lighting, I was like, dunk, like, oh my word. Why hasn't anybody done anything like that? And there are limitations, but a smart enough person can come along and, I don't know, just pwn the market with that. Nice. Nice. Um, wow. Well, there we go. There we go. Um, work hard enough and the difficult stuff can become easy. How do I know that? Because I'm a senior developer. Okay, so folks, with that, I'm going to go ahead and dip for tonight for the spoken portion, if you will. As always, Eric Flight, feel free to stay in touch with me, and I really, really appreciate your photos. They're going to help me really triangulate how the scenery should work. And I am going to take a look online and see who we can say hello to. It'll be a quick raid and run for me, but there are some folks that are on right now that we can say hi to. And let's see. Sparky Pilot is on right now, so is Mustafa, my friend, Ibanez Player 200, Stu, and Cross Hyperu. Cross Hyperu is actually somebody that's flying, I think, IRL. Eventually just stay there, not look sus and take pictures of things. I appreciate that. We also have Boeing Sky Pilot on right now. And you want to know what? My friend Pierluck is on and doing a preview of Microsoft Flight Sim scenery. Ah, so many good people to say hi to. Brr. Tell you what, let's do this. I'm gonna go pay service to my friend, um, Cross Hyperu, and we're gonna get a raid going. Cross Hyperu is somebody that I've watched a few times and actually takes time to educate people on the process of flying on VATSIM and tries to go for a very nice, very sociable, but also very passionate flying experience in a sim. Very nice, Eric Flight. Thank you. Let's set up the raid now. We're going to go say hi to Cross Hyperu. Cross Hyperu. And that's it for me for tonight, folks. Like I always like to say, if you want true peace, you need the Prince of Peace, and that is Jesus Christ. I hope you have a very, very good evening. If I don't talk to you anymore this weekend, hope you have a fantastic weekend. Much love to you all. Stay safe out there, Lord willing. And until next time, take care.